Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyev cha
Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
So we don't have a Guru Prasad Prabhuji, I think. So I will just, we will start the program, and I will basically give Yashika to give a brief introduction. But I would quickly want to say thank you, Prabhuji. It's very early morning in India, and you gave us some time, and you have been continuously doing these programs yesterday, here, there, every day I see it. And so we want to thank you very much. Without further delay, I ask Yashika to welcome. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees.
Good to
Hare
see
Krishna,
you.
Prabhu. Hari Bol. We're very fortunate to have the rare association of His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji here with us. Prabhuji is a monk, a spiritual author, and a mentor. He did a degree in electronics and telecommunications engineering from the Government College of Pune, and subsequently served as a software engineer for a multinational software corporation. And seeing the prevalent problems of stress, depression, addiction, all caused by a lack of spirituality in the world, he felt inspired to dedicate his life to sharing the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. And he traveled all over the world, from Australia to America, giving talks on spiritual subjects in various universities like Princeton, Yale, Harvard, Cambridge, as well as many companies such as Intel, Microsoft, and Google. Prabhuji is also an author of the world's only Gita daily feature, where he daily writes an inspirational reflection on a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, and he's written over 3,000, which are posted on gitadaily.com and are read by thousands all over the world. Prabhuji also answers questions from seekers on his site, thespiritualscientist.com, and his articles have been published in various Indian newspapers, including Times of India, Indian Express, as well as Economic Times. He is a member of ISKCON's leading intellectual body, the Shastric Advisory Council, and is an associate editor of the global magazine Back to Godhead. Prabhuji is also an author of almost, 25 books, including Idol Worship or Ideal Worship, Frequently Unanswered Questions, and the Gita for Daily Enrichment. So once again, I'd like to welcome His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji and hand it over to him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Can I share my screen? Yeah. Okay, so we will discuss this. My screen is also visible to you now?
Yes.
Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I'm grateful to be here with all of you today, and I'll speak today on some of the prayers by Bhīṣma Pitamaha to Lord Kṛṣṇa. This is the month of Kartik, and the last 5 days are celebrated as the Bhīṣma Panchak. So in the Bhīṣma Panchak, this is the time when Lord Bhīṣmadeva performed severe austerities, and that is what is celebrated So let's look at one of these verses, and I'll speak on the theme of how the first canto of the Bhagavatam uh, preludes or predicts the 10th canto, and how that is the mood in which we all can practice devotion. So this is 1:940. Lalit gati vilas val guhasa pranay nirikshana kalpito rumanaha krutamanu krutavatya unmadandhaha prakritimagan kilayasya gopavadvaha. So this is what is the setting over here. We have Bhīṣma Pitamaha is lying on an arrow bed and is offering prayers to Krishna, who has come right in front of him at that time. And Thape Kanta Bhakteshu Pashya Bhupanu Kampitam Yanme Syumstajitah Sakshat Krishno Darshanamagataha. So Krishna himself has come to give darshan, and Bhishma is appreciating that. He's glorifying the Lord. He's telling Yudhishthira Maharaj, just see how Krishna rewards his unflinching devotees, that he comes himself to have darshan of the Lord. And Bhishma Pitama is remembering many of the pastimes of the Lord in which he has participated. But this is among the few verses where Bhishma Pitama is remembering something, remembering a pastime in which he has not participated. This is the pastime of how the gopis were maddened in separation from Krishna. So Lalit Gati Vilas Val Guhasa. So Lalit is graceful, beautiful, attractive. Gati. So Krishna, he moved so gracefully. He had such a charm, his movement. Vilas, his act, not only was his like his movements were graceful, but actually his movements were fascinating, because what he did, some people might just walk gracefully or talk gracefully, but what they talk also is important. What they do is also important. Val Guhasa. And Krishna's smile was captivating. Pranay nirikshana kalpita orumanaha. Pranay nirikshana. So the gopis, when Krishna glanced at them with love, his all his reflected his art. His heart was filled with love, and all this was seen in his loving glances, in his graceful movements. And Krutam kalpita orumanaha. And all this is actually the gopis. What did they do on seeing all this, on remembering all this? The gopis are highly glorified because they did something. What is that? Krutam anukrutavatya unmadandhaha. Krutam, when they did like this, anukrutavatya unmadandhaha, they started imitating Krishna's pastimes, and they became unmad andha. They became blinded by divine madness. Prakritim aganakilayasya gopavadvaha. And in this way, their prakriti, their nature got changed. Aganakilayasya gopavadvaha. Those glorious gopis, they just became transformed, mad with ecstasy. So it's a very curious remembrance. Undoubtedly he's remembering the glories of the gopis. Now, why is this curious? I'll talk about this for many reasons, but three reasons. First of all, Bhishma Pitama is a celibate, is a lifelong celibate. And normally, if anybody is trying to follow a vow of some kind of self-restraint, they normally won't talk about, say, anything that will tempt them. So if you're fasting on Ekadashi, we will probably not talk elaborately about food at that time. So Bhishma Pitama, he's a celibate and he is glorifying the gopis. And he's not just a celibate, he's a celibate, is a brahmachari who is on the verge of death. Normally, on the verge of death, we want to remember Krishna. But normally, the world's tempting objects are something which we want to avoid remembering. But he's remembering the gopis at that time. So, for a brahmachari to remember a woman is unusual, is questionable. For somebody at the time of death to remember uh, uh, someone who could be like a tempting object, that is also questionable. And on top of that, what is he remembering? He's not exactly remembering, say, uh, he's not exactly remembering Krishna over here. He's remembering, yes, he's remembering, but he's remembering Krishna as he was remembered by the gopis. And not only that, he's actually remembering and appreciating the transformation that happened in the gopis because of that. Now, in the Rasa Panchadhyay, which is the 5 chapters of the 10th canto in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which are chapters 29 to 33, they describe the highest levels of devotion. And these are considered by our acharyas to be like the heart of the Bhagavatam. So the 10th canto itself is one level, the heart, but we could call that within that, the heart of the Bhagavatam is the Ras Panchadhyay. And in the Ras Panchadhyay, it is like a 5-act play or a 5-stage play. Nowadays plays are not that common because we just have movies and other things. But if there is a play, then if there are multi-act play, then what happens? One act happens, then the screen closes down, and then the screen opens and another act starts. So so what he is describing is the second act of the play. In the first act of the play, that is the 29th chapter, Krishna calls the gopis, and the gopis come to the forest to be with him. And then Krishna talks with them, and then they start the rasa dance. And then Krishna disappears from them. When Krishna disappears, at that time, the gopis start madly searching for Krishna. And while searching for him, unable to bear separation from him, they start acting out some of his pastimes. And one gopi just leaps onto another gopi, and he treats that gopi like Trunavarth, and that gopi seems to carry Krishna away, and that gopi becomes heavier and crushes the other gopi. And another gopi, Krishna, one gopi jumps on another gopi, and that gopi starts, Muncha, Muncha, let me go. That means that gopi is like Putana, and she's saying, let me go, let me go. And the gopis also perform pastimes which are yet to happen, like the killing of, they enact the pastimes of Yomasur and others, which are yet to happen in the 10th canto. So in this way, the gopis become mad with remembrance of Krishna. So here, Bhīṣma Pitama is remembering that pastime. He's remembering how the gopis are remembering Krishna and are becoming transformed and transported by the remembrance of Krishna. So there are these two things which will be the theme of our discussion. See, devotion leads to transformation and devotion leads to transportation. So transformation means where we are right now, there's some change over here. And transportation means we are shifted from here to somewhere else. So if we consider, as I said, now why would Bhīṣma Pitama remember this particular pastime? So I said, I'll talk about three unusual things about this. First was that the celibate is remembering women, and that too women who are out at night. So, and that on top of that, his person who's dying is remembering some women. And on top of that, he's remembering specifically how the gopis are remembering Krishna and are being transformed by that. Now, in many ways, although externally the gopis and Bhīṣma are very different, because Bhīṣma, as I said, is a king, is a member of a royal family and is a celibate, where the gopis are Vaishya women. But internally, their mood of devotion is similar. How is that similar? Because both of them had to court misunderstanding from the world for their devotion. Both of them were misunderstood by the world. Now, how did this happen? With the gopis, of course, we know that the gopis are serving Krishna in Parkiya Bhav. Parkiya Bhav means that, okay, I don't think we need this slide now. Parkiya Bhav means that the gopis are serving Krishna in the mood of love and separation. So they are not related in wedded love. And so because they are not as husband and wife, actually eternally they are husband and wife, but in that particular lila they are not as husband and wife. So that's why they are reproached by the world for what they did. Leaving everyone, I think, go out to be with Krishna. Now, Bhīṣma Pitama, he fought on the side of the Kauravas. Now, there are multiple reasons why he did that, but he fought against Krishna. And not only did he fight against Krishna, it was not just fighting in the party against Krishna, he was actually literally fighting against Krishna. That means he was literally shooting arrows. The arrows were targeted at Arjuna, but while shooting Arjuna, some of his arrows also hit Krishna. So that's extreme. How does one hit one's worshipable Lord? And if one is hitting one's worshipable Lord, how is that person one's worshipable Lord? So what is the mood over here? The whole Bhagavatam is, in one sense, spoken in the shadow of separation. The Bhagavatam is a book which is, we could say, a book for dealing with grief. There is grief and there is lamentation. Lamentation is when something bad happens to us in the past, say especially bad in terms of losing a loved one, and then we keep wallowing in that grief. It's going on and thinking about it and getting entrapped in it, getting deluded by it. So lamentation is unhealthy. However, grief is natural, and it's a natural part of the healing process after loss. It's like if our body is physically injured, there's a wound, and the wound takes time to heal. There's a natural process for healing. Maybe if you have a fracture, then the doctor might tell us first, okay, first keep your body motionless, and then afterward you can start moving your body. Or if your hand is fractured, keep the hand in a sling for some time and gradually start moving it. So like that, there is a natural healing process for the wounds caused by loss also. So what is the loss? Krishna, if you consider the context of the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavatam is spoken by Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. And this has happened soon after the departure of Krishna from the world. So it is almost a generation away, but a generation is not a big time from the point of view of cosmic history. If we consider, say, Indian history, in 1947, India got independent. And if you see most of the literature written in India, 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, it was all in the shadow of the independence movement. So there are certain events which are very cosmic, which are very cataclysmic or cosmic in their consequence. And then they cast a long shadow. Or if you look at Europe, or even America to some extent, in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, I don't know how so much in Canada, but the literature that was written in Europe and in UK, Germany, France, America, it was quite about the Second World War and what happened thereafter. So what happens is Krishna's departure has happened and it's cast a long shadow. So the whole Bhagavatam is spoken in the mood of separation from Krishna. And in that mood of separation from Krishna, when the Bhagavatam is spoken, its mood is gradually elevating. That means elevating in terms of describing a clearer vision of Krishna, describing a deeper connection with Krishna, and describing uh, a more, you could say, a painfully sweeter separation from Krishna. So three things: a clearer vision of the Lord, a deeper connection with the Lord, and a sweeter separation from the Lord. So whenever there is love, there is, first of all, we need to know the object of love. Without that, the love cannot really be that real. So there's a clearer vision of God. If we start with the Bhagavatam, the second canto describes the Virata Rupa, the third canto describes the Lord as the Purusha revealed through Prakriti, Purusha revealed through Sankhya. And then there are various avatars described. There is Varaha, there is Vamana, there is Matsya. And like that, it moves on to the 10th canto. So what is happening is, in the 10th canto, there are 90 chapters, they're the longest canto, and there's a clearer and clearer description of the Lord in the 10th canto. In fact, there are many books on Krishna Lila. Among the various Puranas and Itihasas, Krishna Lila is described most in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So there's a clearer and clearer vision of God. Then, okay, we might know a lot about a particular person. Say historically, we might know a lot. If somebody decides to do a PhD, say in say a particular political leader, and or his thoughts or his contributions, one may know a lot about that person, but one may not feel any deep personal connection with that person. But it's not just a clearer vision of the Lord; it's a deeper connection with the Lord. So if we see, if we see some of the avatars of the Lord, say like, if we consider Matsya avatar, there is one avatar which is described because even in separation there is remembrance, and in that remembrance there is joy. So it is Chaitanya Charitamrita gives the example that loving separation is like hot sugarcane juice. Because it's sugarcane juice, it's delicious, so you can't stop drinking it. But because it's hot, we can't drink it also. So it's painfully sweet. So for the gopis, they have given their life to Krishna, and now they are separated from Krishna. They just can't bear that separation from him. And that mood of the 10th canto is described in the first canto. So if we consider, in the first canto, Krishna's entry is quite dramatic, and we could say it's a little unusual, because in the first canto, Krishna's entry as an active presence or active person is in the 7th chapter, where the son of Drona punished the chapter. And what is happening over there? Ashwathama has killed the sons of the Pandavas, and Krishna and Arjuna are chasing Ashwathama. That's how Krishna enters. So Krishna enters the Bhagavatam in the similar position to how he enters the Bhagavad Gita, that is, as Partha Sarthi, as the charioteer of Arjuna. And then from the 7th chapter onwards till chapter 15, there is a vivid description of Krishna Lila, of different pastimes of Krishna are there, 50 chapters. And that is the most detailed description of Krishna in the Bhagavatam before the 10th canto. So there are these 9 chapters. Now, one of them is about Dhritarashtra's departure from the world. But apart from that, all of them are about Krishna's pastimes and Krishna's interactions with his devotees. So the 10th canto gives a prelude of the first canto gives a prelude of the 10th canto. So now, within that prelude of the 10th canto, Bhishma's prayers give a prelude of the gopis' prayers. Now, how exactly does that happen? So that's what I was talking, that how the gopis were misunderstood by the world. And it says, They said, how can you leave your home at night to go out to be with Krishna like this? But the gopis, although they were misunderstood, still they stood firm in their conviction. Bhishma was also misunderstood because he fought on the side opposite to the Lord, and yet he stood firm in his conviction. Now, Krishna could have easily arranged for, within the Vrajalila, for the gopis to be married to him. And if Krishna had arranged it that way, Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and Vrajalila, the Leela of the Lord is like a play, it's like a divine drama. And different devotees have different roles. So some devotees become his mother, some devotees become his friend, some devotees become his mother or mother aged gopis in that similar relationship. Some become his friends. So if Krishna can give different roles to different devotees, he could very well have given the gopis the role of being his wives, his queens, rather than being his lovers. So why does he do that? Because through that Krishna has to teach something. Similarly, Krishna could easily have got Bhishma to fight on the side of the Pandavas. For Krishna, anything is possible. Now we could go into specific contextual reasons why Bhishma fought on the side of the Kauravas, and we can go into specific contextual reasons why Krishna was not married to the gopis. But beyond such contextual reasons is a transcendental reason that Krishna wants to make his relationship, make his past, the reciprocations based on this relationship more rich, more relishable, more refined. So how refined? So because generally, how do we see love? At a basic level, if somebody cares for us, then they will talk sweetly with us, they'll be polite to us, they'll be courteous to us. That is not even love, that is basic human decency, we could say. But broadly, love is seen in two ways: what one offers to the beloved, what one gives to the beloved, and second is what one gives up for the beloved. Two things: what one gives to the beloved, and what one gives up for the beloved. Just like, say, if parents love their children, then the parents want to give the best education to the child, maybe the best facilities, the best comforts. No, I want you to have maybe the best education, maybe the best. If in the house, it's hot and there's only one room where there's AC, okay, you can have that room so that you can study comfortably. So we have what we give to the person whom we love, and second is what we give up for the sake of that person. So if, say, the the child is studying and the parents are sitting and watching TV loudly so the child can't study, and they say, the child says, I'm not able to study. He says, no, I had a hard day's work, I want to enjoy right now, you manage your study. Then if you're not even ready to give up your pleasure of, say, watching TV, then where is the love? So maybe giving up TV is like a very preliminary thing, at least not to not disturb the child's studies. But parents may sometimes be ready to sacrifice things. If there is not enough food, so the parents will be ready to give up their own food for the sake of their children. So what we give to the object of love and what we give up for the object of love. And if we consider the practices of bhakti, there is our japa and sadhana. We study scripture, we worship the deities, we chant the holy names. In this way, we are giving our consciousness to the Lord. This is what we give to the Lord. And then the regulative principles that we follow, that is what we give up for the Lord. So there are pleasures there is some amount of pleasure in various sensual activities, and we give up those pleasures for the sake of the Lord. That's how we practice sadhana bhakti. Now, in the case of the gopis, and in the case of Krishna, in the case of Bhishma, we are looking at the similarities in their mood. So in the externals, they are very different, but there is a great similarity. The similarity is that the gopis, they could only sporadically meet Krishna. It was not that because the gopis and Krishna, that they're not in an authorized relationship, so they had to secretly, sometimes furtively plan and meet Krishna. Similarly, Bhishma couldn't really meet Krishna on many occasions. If we look at the Mahabharata and look at the times when Krishna and Bhishma directly meet and talk, it's not many times. It's usually when Krishna comes to, say, Hastinapur to meet the Pandavas, at that time he meets Bhishma also. Or when Krishna comes as a Shanti Dut to talk with Duryodhan, Krishna meets Bhishma also. So so they don't have many meetings. And ultimately, uh, what does Bhishma do for Krishna? What does Bhishma give up for Krishna? And the gopis, they give themselves to Krishna when Krishna calls them, and they calls them by playing the flute, and they go to him. But when they do this, what are they giving? They are giving themselves to Krishna, and what are they giving up? They are giving up, in one sense, their respectability as chaste women, as pure women, because what will society think about them if they go away like this? But they are ready to do that for Krishna's sake. Now, in the case of Bhishma, similarly, Bhishma is both virtuous and devoted, but circumstantially, he's trapped on the side of evil. And now there could be reasons for that. Bhishma himself said that I am bound by money. Money has controlled me, and therefore I have to do this, to fight on the side of the Kauravas. Now that is a very superficial reason. First of all, Bhishma was a member of royalty. Bhishma was not a paid employee. So even though even though he had renounced kingship because of a vow, still he had right to at least some level of royal comforts. He was not drawing a salary from the Kauravas. In fact, the Kauravas, or at least Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra, they were all younger to him. So that could be one level of reasoning, but the actual reason our acharyas explain is that the Lord wanted to demonstrate how anyone, no matter how powerful they may be, if they fight against the Lord, they will be defeated. There is, practically speaking, in the Mahabharata, no person as illustrious as Bhishma. Bhishma was a glorious warrior. He was so great a warrior that warrior who had defeated all warriors, that is Parshuram, had been defeated by Bhishma. It was not actually a defeat because in some ways Parshuram was the teacher of Bhishma, and Bhishma did not want to humiliate Parshuram by defeating him. But Parshuram was overpowered. At that time the war stopped. So Bhishma was the greatest of all warriors. On top of that, Bhishma was immensely learned. In fact, he had, after his birth, been taken by his mother Ganga to the heavens. And there in the heavens, he had learned scripture profusely and profoundly. So profuse refers to quantity and profound refers to depth or quality. So his learning was both profuse and profound. And in this ways, Bhishma actually combined the qualities of a Kshatriya and a Brahmana. Kshatriyas also have significant level of scriptural knowledge, but they don't have the same level of scriptural scholarship that usually Brahmanas have. Because Brahmanas, they have the time and opportunity to fully devote themselves to scriptural study. But the Kshatriyas may not have that because they have royal administrative duties and other things. But Bhishma, he had that opportunity for exclusive immersion when he was with the gods, when his mother had taken him to heavens. He didn't spend his time in heavenly enjoyment. He associated with the sages and learned from them, immersed himself in learning over there. And that culture which he learned stood him in good stead when he came back. Because normally, if somebody goes to a hill station, say somebody says that I'm going for a vacation to the Niagara Falls, or I'm going in India to some place like Simla or something like that. And you say, okay, what are you going there for? Okay, I'm going there I want to do sightseeing, I want to do this, I want to do that. But somebody says, I'm going there to do serious studies for my IIT exams. Oh, really? Okay. So normally if somebody goes to a place where there are swimming pools and there are beaches and this and a lot of enjoyment, to go there and apply oneself to scriptural study or any kind of serious study, that's not easy. But Bhishma did that. So Bhishma, even in his youth, what he exemplified, austerity amid luxury. He was in the heavens, which are a place of luxury, but he austerely studied scripture. And that is what he did in his life thereafter also. Bhishma was a celibate, was a brahmachari. Now there are many great personalities who were celibates, who took the vows of renunciation, and they are described in the Bhagavatam. But there is practically no other person who is a kshatriya who lives in royal opulence and takes the vow of celibacy. No, it's like it's a very difficult thing to do when there is so much luxury and so much enjoyment available all around, to be able to renounce it all and stay pure. So Bhishma's whole life was a life of sacrifice, and his life was a life of sacrifice where instead of enjoyment he was cultivating something higher. So he's cultivating dharma, and ultimately what does he do? He fights against the Lord. The whole world misunderstands him. What did you do? For some petty obligations, for just because you had taken the salt of the Kauravas, and it was not even the salt of the Kauravas. As I said, the Kauravas who were called the Kauravas, they came after him. So how can it be their salt? We could say they were eating his salt, in one sense at least. But he did that because the Lord wanted him to fight on the side opposite to him. And he fought on the side opposite to him. Through that, he demonstrated a lesson. What was that lesson? That lesson was that anyone, however powerful they may be, if they go against the will of the Lord, they will be destroyed. And Bhishma accepted that very difficult duty, a duty for which he would be misunderstood. And although he was misunderstood, his whole life was serving the Lord. And he was in this arrow bed. See, Bhishma had Ichha Mrityu. He had the vow to die at will. And normally, if somebody has the ability to die at will, then they will seek the most painless death possible. In much of the world, especially the developed part of the world, there was a debate going on about euthanasia. Euthanasia is when somebody is old. It's when they are old and usually have an incurable disease. Then can the doctors give them some pills and or give them some medication to end their lives? So it is euphemistically called as mercy killing. But more than mercy killing, it is convenience killing. Convenience killing means that actually taking care of those people who are old and sick is not very convenient for their caregivers, so they want to end their lives. So initially there's strong opposition to it. Even now, many religious communities on ethical grounds, they oppose it. But now society has gone to such an extreme that in Germany was the first country where the right to die is enshrined as a right by the government. That means that a person can go to the doctor and tell them that I want to end my life. Euthanasia was earlier given at a time when a person is, say, terminally sick and has no hope for cure. They say, why live on just in pain? Why waste money and go through pain? Just end my life. But now Germany has made it right that a person may have no medical problems, but the person just says, I don't want to live anymore. So then they can go to a government and they have to fill in some forms, and they have to go through some psychological consultation, and they have to maybe spend 15 days in waiting, and after that they say yes, then they can die. Then the government will the doctors have to give them some medication by which they will die painlessly. In fact, in this COVID crisis, it has happened that there are several people who have taken voluntary euthanasia. So it is just day before yesterday I read about a case of an old woman. She was feeling so lonely because of the COVID lockdown. Naturally, she couldn't be with her family, and because of that loneliness, this happened in America. She decided to end her life, and now it was not like a private suicide. It was euthanasia. So doctors gave her medicine, and uh, for that for that euthanasia, her family members came all around and they were there, and it was like a memorial service while she was alive. So she was dying because of loneliness. Instead of being with her to help her overcome the loneliness, they were there so that she will die, so that she can die. Now it is, the point is, I'm not going to go into get into the absurdity of how euthanasia is happening nowadays, or you could see the horror also, not just absurd, it's horror. But the point is, if somebody has the ability to die at will, then they will choose the most painless death. Okay, why is prolonged pain? If I'm going to die, let me die. Now, Bhishma Pitama had the capacity for Ichha Mrityu, and yet he prolonged his life for a long time. No, for us, we all go through different kinds of pain. Say, if say we are physically injured, there is some pain. Man, that is difficult to bear. But actually, far greater in terms of its emotional agony is the pain when we see someone whom we love going through pain, and especially someone whom we are meant to protect. If they are going through some pain, it's extremely not just painful, it's frustrating. It can be devastating. So for a parent to see their child go through some pain and then not be able to not be able to do anything about it, it can completely shatter a person's morale. Now, Darwin, for various reasons, led to the school of thought that promoted atheism in today's world. But Darwin himself at one time planned to become a priest, but then his daughter died of tuberculosis, and that just jolted him to see her death in her childhood. And he said, I can't accept a God like this. So he didn't become an atheist, but he became an agnostic. And of course, the philosophy that the theory that he propagated eventually spawned atheism, aggressive atheism. The point is that to not be able to protect someone whom we love can be immensely painful. And in the case of Bhishma, he was the grandsire of the family, and he loved the Pandavas. In fact, if you consider extended family, if there is a extended family, then what happens is there is a normal hierarchy of protection. Say the father or the parents protect the children. But if say in a joint family, and if there is, say there are cousins living together, and say in one branch the father is not there. So then what happens? The other relatives feel a special obligation. I have to take care of them. So the Pandavas were like that. Pandu was not there. So Bhishma felt a special obligation to take care of the Pandavas. And yet he couldn't stop. He couldn't stop all the many atrocities that befell them. That caused him great agony. Now he could have said, I can't see this virtuous Pandava suffering like this. I don't want to live anymore. He could have said that. But he didn't. He lived on. Not only that, if we see among all the Kaurava, all those who fought on the side of the Kauravas, Bhishma, in one sense, suffered the most painful death. All the other warriors, Drona, his head was lopped off, and it's over. Karna, he was shot by the arrow, and it's over. Dushasana, he had a little painful death. His arm was ripped off, and then he was killed. Duryodhana, his thigh was broken, and then he died a painful death. But Duryodhana lived for a few hours after he got that fatal blow. But Bhishma, in one sense, suffered the most painful injuries. He was such a great Kshatriya, and such was his. We often use the word he was lying on an arrow bed. But what does it mean? If some of us, if we go on an international flight and then we don't have a comfortable bed to sleep on, then we get a little irritable because we have to sit and sleep. But here he's lying down, and lying down with hundreds of arrows piercing his body. And if somebody's in that kind of pain and they have the capacity for ichha mrityu, I'm in so much pain, I just want to die. Give me some medicine, I want to kill myself. That's what euthanasia people want euthanasia at that time. So Bhishma could have done that, but he didn't. Why didn't he do that? Why did he live on? In fact, he not only endured that pain, but he endured that pain for several days. He fell on the 10th day, and 8 more days he was alive till the Kurukshetra war got over. And after that, the last rites of all the deceased warriors were performed, and that was not like a rushed affair. It took time, and then Krishna came and brought Yudhishthira over there before Bhishma. And then Bhishma gave instructions to Yudhishthira. And in the Mahabharata, there's the Shanti Parva and there's the Anushasana Parva. There is the book of peace and the book of administration. And these two are among the biggest books in the Mahabharata. In fact, most Mahabharats that we read, Mahabharata itself is a very big book, almost more than, it's 110,000 verses actually, the longest poem in world history. But more than all the events in the Mahabharata, right from the birth of the ancestors of the Pandavas to the end of the Kurukshetra war, all of that is not as big as is the length of the instructions given by Bhishma. So it went on for days upon days. So Bhishma was in immense pain and he was still speaking to Yudhishthira. So why was he doing this? Because he wanted to do the service that the Lord wanted him to do. So why did Bhishma not take the Ichha Mrityu and die earlier? Because he wanted to serve the Lord. And he knew by the Lord's plan, the Pandavas would eventually triumph. And he wanted to wait and behold the triumph of the Pandavas. And he beheld the triumph of the Pandavas, and then he knew that the Lord had a service for him. See, normally, if somebody is going to die, we won't dress in very stylish, fashionable, opulent clothes and go to the person who is going to die. But when Krishna asked the Pandavas to go, he asked to be with Bhishma, he asked them to go in royal opulence. Why? Because he knew that would fulfill the desire of Bhishma. And then Krishna wanted Bhishma to instruct Yudhishthira. And Bhishma instructed Yudhishthira. So why did Yudhishthira need that instruction? Because victory had taken a heavy toll. In English, there is a term called Pyrrhic victory. Pyrrhic means there was actually, I think a Greek emperor named Pyrrhus, and in the 3rd century, 3rd, 4th century, there was a very fierce war that he fought with the Romans, and they won the war, but in that war they lost many of their prominent generals and their soldiers. And this King Pyrrhus is reputed to have said at that time, one more victory like this and we'll be destroyed. Now, normally you don't say after victory we'll be destroyed. One more defeat like this and we'll be destroyed. But one more victory like this and we'll be destroyed. What that means is that sometimes victory costs so much that we start thinking, what is the use of fighting? What is the use of fighting? Like, is this really worth it? It's a Pyrrhic victory. And generally, this is what happens in our close relationships. Sometimes in our close relationships, say husband, wife, or any other sibling, or any kind of relationship, parent-child relationship, sometimes we have a fight. We argue, we debate, we fight. Now, in such fights, the purpose has to be peace, not victory. Why not? Because even if we win, what is the result of that victory? No, we have to live with that other person who has been defeated. And defeated means they will be unhappy, they will be angry, and their unhappiness and anger will boil over into our relationship. Yes, sometimes we may be right and they may be wrong, and we may have to establish that. But the purpose should not be to defeat the other person. Especially in close relationships, every victory is a Pyrrhic victory. It will cost more than what it will give. So Yudhishthir felt that this victory was Pyrrhic. I lost my sons, I lost my elders, I lost so much. What is the point of this victory? And Krishna wanted Bhīṣma to instruct. Because Yudhishthir was feeling that, Bhīṣma has died. I was responsible for the death of Bhīṣma. And among all the warriors who were killed on the Kurukshetra war, no other death caused, no other warrior's death, especially warrior from the Kauravas side, no other Kaurava warrior's death caused the Pandavas as much pain as the death of Bhīṣma. So to hear Bhīṣma speak wisdom, that was vital to assuage the afflicted heart of Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir was burdened by sense of guilt. And he thought, how could I have been so greedy that for gaining a kingdom, I caused the death of so many people? And Bhīṣma spoke to Yudhishthir and told him that a king's duty is difficult. And you did not fight this war just to gain a kingdom. You fought this war to do the will of the Lord, to establish dharma in the world. And so he gave him that bigger vision of the plan of the Lord. And that's why he also says, I quoted this verse earlier, that Bhīṣma is telling, just see, O Yudhishthir, how the Lord reward. He says that because I am the unflinching devotee, because I am an unflinching devotee, the Lord has come and given me his darshan now at the time of my death. So you may say, how can a devotee say that I am a pure devotee, I am an unflinching devotee? Isn't that pride? Isn't that arrogance? No, it is not in this context. Because Bhīṣma Pitama is not simply saying, I am a great devotee. He's talking about the principle of devotion and how devotion is rewarded by the Lord. So he's giving his example to say that I did a difficult duty. And my difficult duty, just see how it was rewarded by the Lord. It was rewarded because he came right in front of me at this time of my death. So just as I did a difficult duty, O Yudhishthir, now it is your time to do a difficult duty. And if you do this difficult duty, you will also be rewarded. And Bhīṣma Pitama, he gives his instructions on dharma. To Yudhishthir, and then after that, he closes his eyes. And then he meditates inward. Although Krishna is there in front of him, he's beheld the form of Krishna, taken in the form of Krishna with his eyes. And then he departs from the world, peacefully in remembrance of the Lord. So while he is departing from the world, just before he departs, he offers about 10, 11 verses of prayers. And one among those is this prayer. So he is now experiencing the presence of the Lord in front of him, but he's also experiencing separation because he is going away from the Lord. The gopis, Krishna had gone away from them. The gopis had come to Krishna and Krishna had disappeared from them. In the case of Bhīṣma, Bhīṣma was going away from Krishna, but he was not going away from Krishna. Externally, he was going away from Krishna. Internally, he was going toward Krishna, who is going to the abode of Krishna. Normally, when a person dies, they leave home. Either if they go to a hospital, if they die in the hospital, or they die at home, then they leave home. But when a devotee dies, a devotee doesn't leave home. A devotee goes home. Because for a devotee, home is at the lotus feet of the Lord. Home is the Lord. And a devotee who has devoted oneself to the Lord attains the Lord at the time of death. So Bhishma is about to attain that. And that is remembering, as I said, the transformation and the transportation. So devotion is seen through transformation and transportation. So he's remembering the transformation that happened in the gopis, by which they're maddened and they're acting like Krishna, they're acting like Kaliya, they're acting like Putana, and they're acting in various different ways. They're transformed. So similarly, by his devotion, Bhishma was transformed. And although he was physically in great pain, he was not feeling that pain because his consciousness was no longer there. He was so transformed in his absorption in Krishna that it was as if he was not in his body at all. He was with Krishna. And then he closed his eyes and he departed to the spiritual world. And that is the ultimate triumph of a devotee. That to live and to bhakti is the art not just of living, but is also the art of leaving. Living in devotion and leaving in devotion. And that's what Bhishma's austerities, they teach us, they demonstrate to us. Bhishma's life is an example. And during this Kartik month, when we remember the Lord in different ways through his different pastimes, it's fitting that this Kartik month concludes with an example celebrating the austerities of Bhishma. Because Bhishma, he lived a life of great sacrifice, great pain. And he demonstrates in an extraordinary way how pain in this world on behalf of the Lord will give immense rewards, the ultimate reward. And that is what we also can aspire. In our lives, there'll be difficulties and pains in different ways. And we can't, no matter whatever arrangements we make, we can't free ourselves from pain. But what we can do is cultivate a purpose that will make pain worthwhile, that will make pain meaningful. And devotion is the ultimate purpose that can make even the greatest of pains meaningful, and that can make the most difficult of life purposeful. So that is what Bhishma demonstrates, and that is what we can try to internalize based on this contemplation of Bhishma's glories during this Bhishma Panchak in the Kartik Mass. So I'll summarize what I spoke today. I spoke today about Bhishma's extraordinary pastimes, and specifically the extraordinariness of his remembrance of Krishna in this particular verse, which is spoken on his deathbed. So it's a celibate remembering women. It's a person on his deathbed remembering what would normally be seen as a tempting object. And he's remembering not so much the Lord, but he's remembering how the gopis are remembering the Lord and how the gopis are affected by the remembrance of the Lord. So what is the significance of this particular mood of Bhishma's remembrance? I discussed that how the first canto reflects or gives a prelude of the 10th canto. In the 10th canto, there are 90 chapters describing Krishna Leela, and in the first canto, there are 9 chapters. And these were both, they go into Krishna Leela in significant detail. And in the 10th canto, the heart of the heart is the Gopi's prayer, Gopi Gita, and Bhishma's song reflects a similar mood of separation. So the Gopis had to quote misunderstanding and condemnation from the world for their devotion to the Lord. And Bhishma too had to quote misunderstanding and condemnation because apparently he fought against Krishna. Then it discussed about how, as the Bhagavatam, as it progresses, its vision of God becomes clearer. Then the connection with the Lord becomes deeper and separation from him becomes sweeter. The whole Bhagavatam, in a sense, is spoken in the shadow of separation from Krishna, because Krishna has just departed from the world. And the gopis, Krishna has departed from them within that pastime. And for Bhishma, he is going to depart from Krishna's presence right now. And so that mood of separation, which is a bittersweet mood that permeates the entire Bhagavatam. And then I talked elaborately about Bhishma's sacrifice, that he had a difficult life. He practiced austerity amid luxury. In the heavens, instead of enjoying heavenly pleasures, he studied scripture with the sages. Then in the Kuru household, although he lived in royal luxury, he had taken a vow of celibacy. And then the difficult duty that he had was to fight against the Lord, to demonstrate that no matter however powerful anyone might be, when they go against the Lord, they will be defeated. He took that thankless task. And then lastly, I talked, the major part of the class was about how although Bhishma had Ichha Mrityu, he lived on for so long. Normally, if somebody is in great pain, they want to take euthanasia and have as painless a death as possible. And Bhishma went through so much pain. One pain was seeing the virtuous Pandavas, who were orphans in the sense that they had no father, whom he was meant to protect, seeing them suffer so much. It caused him agony. And then on top of that, among all the Kaurava warriors, all the warriors on the Kaurava side, he was by far the most virtuous. And yet he suffered the greatest pain by being pierced by hundreds of arrows and lying on an arrow bed for days together. And yet he waited. Why? Because he had faith in the Lord's plan. He wanted to behold the Pandavas' eventual triumph, and he wanted to play his part. And his part was glorious. That on the arrow bed for days upon days, he had a extraordinary discussion on how to do the difficult duty of a Kshatriya, the Raja Dharma, which is in the Anushasana Shanti Parvas of the Mahabharata. And then after that, here he absorbs himself in the Lord and he departs. So Bhishma is the ideal example of how to depart gloriously in the presence of the Lord. And by cultivating that mood that life will be difficult for everyone, rather than trying to wish away the pain, we cultivate a purpose that makes pain meaningful. And bhakti is that ultimate purpose. Bhakti is seen by what we give to the Lord and what we give up for the Lord. And both these are demonstrated in extraordinary ways by Bhishma. And we can pray to assimilate a drop of his mood while remembering his glories during the Bhishma Panchak. So thank you very much. Bhishma Pitamaha ki jai. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So, do we have time for questions, and are there any questions?
Yes, Prabhuji, we have time for questions, and it's open for everyone. But before that, I want to say thank you very much. The class was so intense that, in India we say if you have hiccups, means somebody is remembering you. I can say that maybe Lord Kṛṣṇa himself is coming to you and he can't miss you speaking. So thank you very much. It's open.
I have one question.
Yes,
Yes, please.
In the Mahabharata war was for 18 days. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
How many days was Bhishma on the bed of arrows?
Yeah. That it is not very clearly mentioned. See, Bhishma Panchak is not related with exactly related with the deathbed austerities of Bhishma. Bhishma Panchak was a vrata that Bhishma performed during his lifetime. So normally, if you look at it chronologically, generally speaking, it is said that Bhishma instructed Yudhishthir for about for a significant number of days. So if normally Bhishma is said to have departed from the world on Makar Sankranti. That usually comes on the 14th of Jan. And
Yeah.
the Gita is said to be spoken on Mokshada Ekadashi, which usually comes around 10th of December or something like that. So 8th, 10th of December. So after that 18 days, the war happened. And then after that, the discussion happened. So now, according to some sources, it is said that he spoke for 40 days. So now the only way he could have spoken for 40 days would be if the Adhik Mas came in between at that time. So it would be around, so if we go from it chronologically, say the 10th, approximately if the 10th is from 10th to 28th would be 18 days, and then a few days for performing the last rites and everything, whatever time it takes. Now, according to some understandings, actually the coronation ceremony was performed and after that he went to Bhīṣma. According to some understanding, it was not the coronation was performed, but rather because the coronation is like a big event. So it was like more like a informal acceptance of power, not like the official coronation. And then after that he came. So then we could say that there would be around between 10 to 18, about 18 days are there from that point onwards. But if it's, so the conventional understanding was he spoke for 40 days. So that 40 days would be possible if there's a Adhik Mas in between between the Mokshada Ekadashi and Makar Sankranti. Okay.
Yes, I have a question. I don't live near a temple, and this might be a crazy question to ask, but I learned most of my devotions from YouTube. And I was wondering, what kind of daily devotions do you recommend? Like I sometimes have a different devotion for each day for a week, and then I repeat it again, my same different ones each day, or do you recommend a same mantra or devotion day in, day out?
What exactly do you mean by devotion in this context?
Just a mantra, reciting a mantra or different, yeah, along that line of 108 time mantra that's I repeat. And like I say, every day I change it just for variety. But then I'm thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should just stick to the one devotion.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I would say there are two aspects to this. That there is, if you consider any relationship, in any relationship, for the relationship to be rich and real, there is a certain amount of predictability that is required and a certain amount of unpredictability. If there is, if it's entirely predictable, then we already know if I speak this person will speak this. If I do this person will do this. Then there is no excitement left in that relationship. Then it's almost like relating with a robot. On the other hand, if it's completely unpredictable, we do some small thing wrong and the other person explodes. We just don't know. Then it's like having a house in a place where there are mines over there. Any step will cause an explosion. So we can't have too much unpredictability in our relationships, and we can't have too much predictability. It's a healthy blend of both. That's what. So if there is some amount of unpredictability, that creates some excitement, and there is some amount of stability, there's some amount of predictability that creates some stability, the stable foundation. So ultimately, we also want to develop a relationship with the Lord, and for that relationship, also in that relationship also we can say there is predictability and unpredictability. So in our devotional practices, there need to be some practices that are steady and stable. They like create the foundation. So a certain amount of chanting of the mantras, like we usually chant the Hare Krishna mantra. So we study the certain books, we worship Krishna, we study the Bhagavatam. So all this, there is a certain foundation of predictability. But along with that, there is also some amount of unpredictability, in the sense that, say, every day whenever we attend a class, or we may digitally attend a class, physically go to a program, whatever. Now, we don't know what we are going to hear exactly on that day. So there's some amount of newness. So we could also chant some special mantras if we like. But whatever we do special and novel, that need not be at the expense of the regular. That can be in addition to the regular. So now if we have limited amount of time, then we can decide, okay, in my limited amount of whatever time I have, there is some regular devotion that I'll be doing, and there can be some special devotion that I can do. So even if you're going to read books, sometimes there is some background noise. What is going on?
Yes, somebody is probably not on mute, and that's coming from somewhere.
Okay. So now, if we have, say, a limited amount of time, then if we are reading books, then it is good to have, say, even if you say I have a half an hour to read every day, that's all that I have time. So maybe you decide, maybe 20 minutes, I will read one book every day. Maybe I'll read the Bhagavad Gita, I'll read the Bhagavatam. And then 10 minutes, I can read some other articles from here. Sometimes we read something interesting on the net. Sometimes somebody might forward some articles. There are various magazines that are published in the devotee community. So we could distribute. So have some room for the regular and have some room for the novel. So let the novel not replace the regular. So if you do that, then there'll be like the balance of predictability and unpredictability. And that will keep your relationship with Krishna real and rich. Does it answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Can I ask a question, Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhu, please.
First, I want to say thank you to Dan. But if Dan needs further help, you can always contact one of us, regular members at ISKCON Ottawa, and we will surely be able to help you. And if you put your email here on the chat box, we will give you our regular invitation we will send you. And there you can regularly join us and ask even very basic questions also more and more. And then you, as Prabhuji just said, that the regular and then the extra and that interrelationships, you can probably get more exposure to that. So on a short notice, you can send an email address to here, probably ISKCON Ottawa host, and he's going to put it in our master mailing list, and then you will get regular invitations. Okay, thank you there. Now my question, Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji, is you said that Bhīṣmadeva fought against Krishna. Now, Nanda Baba knew that Kansa is going to kill him, but he went against Kansa and went in favor of Krishna. Raja Dashrath went against Rama, but he went in favor of his vow. He put more weightage on. But here, Bhīṣma, does it fall in the same category, or what is the final destination of Bhīṣma in this case here? I mean, this is not clear, but the text is. Yeah. I have. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so if we consider Bhīṣma fought against the Lord. Now, Nanda Maharaj also was subordinate to Kamsa, although Kamsa was the enemy of Krishna. Kamsa wanted to kill Krishna. And we also see Dashrath Maharaj, in one sense, acted against Lord Ram. So what are the similarities or differences? Well, we could say that all three have a similar, we could say that there is a similarity in that the circumstantial and the transcendental can sometimes pull in opposite directions. The circumstantial and the transcendental, say, they may pull in opposite directions at times. And this can, say, happen in our lives also sometimes. Say, if like I earlier talked about evolution. Now, evolution itself is not intrinsically atheistic. It is a scientific theory. But evolution has been widely used by atheists to prop up their theory. That the atheism is ideology, science is a tool. So science is a tool. As a tool, it neither proves God nor does it disprove God. But atheism has been, but this tool of science, and specifically the theory of evolution, has been used by atheists to promote atheism. So now what happens is, suppose a devotee is working in the field of evolution. What does the devotee do at that time? Now the devotee may decide that I'm going to go against it. I'm going to use my scientific knowledge to try to counter this theory. But that may not be the devotee's research specialization on nature. Then sometimes the devotee professionally may have to go and do what is required within their profession. But then their devotion is different. Their devotional orientation is different. So now I'm not, if a devotee is in that situation, we have to carefully consider how to go ahead. But I'm just giving that as an example that sometimes the circumstantial and the transcendental can pull us in opposite directions. So yes, now Nanda Maharaj was, as he was not a Kshatriya, he was a Vaishya. And as a Vaishya, he offered taxes and his tribute to Kamsa. So now why did he do that? Well, there is a, how do I put it, that there is a certain amount of ambiguity about Krishna's identity among the Vrajavasis. The Vrajavasis actually never accept that Krishna is Vasudev's son. When Gargamuni comes, Gargamuni tells them that, tells Nanda Maharaj that your son was previously Vasudev's son. Now, previously is an ambiguous word. Nanda Maharaj thinks that previously means in a previous life he was Vasudev's son. But he's saying that, okay, in this life itself, he was born to Vasudev. And then he says, your son is like Narayan. He doesn't say your son is Narayan. Not that your son is the source of Narayan. So he thinks, oh, that now in India, many times it says, oh, your son is like Ram, your daughter is like Sita. Or that's a general way of giving benediction. It's so they never really accept that Krishna is Vasudev's son. And now the Vrajavasis do see all the dangers coming, and they know the demons are coming. But are all the Vrajavasis completely sure that all these demons are being sent by Kamsa? There is definitely apprehension when Uddhava comes, not Uddhava, when Akrura comes and asks to take Krishna. But the Vrajavasis, at that time, they don't really expect that Kamsa has made a plan to kill Krishna. They say, okay, he wants Krishna to come, let him go. So there is a certain amount of deference to authority that is there within the broad Vedic culture. We see even in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, although Nawab Hussain Shah was a tyrant, was a religious autocrat who would destroy temples and stuff like that. As long as he was the king, Sanatana Rupa and Sanatana Goswami offered him respects. So even Prahlad Maharaj, he offered respects to Hiranyakashipu. He was never disrespectful deliberately, but he remained firm in his devotion. So similarly, Nanda Maharaj, he did all that could be done to protect Krishna, and said they were living in Gokul and they decided to move to Vrindavan. They did all they could to protect Krishna, but he didn't deliberately defy Kamsa in any way. So I would say that's circumstantially, there's no need to openly increase hostilities. And circumstantially, whether he knew that the demons were coming from Krishna, coming from Kamsa, that is also open to question. So in general, the broad, we could say, the Vedic culture, the Bhakti culture, it is centered on deference to authority, not defiance of authority. Now there is time when defiance may be required, and that is done, no doubt. Like Bali Maharaj goes against Shukracharya also. The gopis go against their family members. There are times, but there is no need to do it intentionally or deliberately. Now, in the case of Dashrath Maharaj, it was again circumstantially as bound because he had his word of honor which he had given to Kaikai, and that's why he had to go against his own plan to have Ram enthroned as the prince regent and then the king. And did Dashrath do something against Ram? Well, it is not against Ram. It was more that he had to do his duty, and that duty happened to be in such a way that it had Ram going to the forest because of that. Now, Ram himself never criticized Dashrath for that. And those who criticized Dashrath, Ram silenced them. He said, no. Lakshman was enraged. He said, the king is doing this out of his infatuation for Kaikeyi. And Ram said, no, he's doing it out of obligation, not infatuation. So sometimes circumstances can put very difficult situations for us. Now, at the still, we see that even Dashrath had never had as difficult a task as shooting arrows at Ram. I don't see any other devotee who had that service or that role. We could say in the Maushal Leela, Jai Vijay, when they become demons like Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, they fight against the Lord. But then they are directly in demoniac forms. And they've lived their lives mostly as demons. So, but Bhīṣma is a virtuous person and he has to fight against the Lord. And that is very difficult. And that's what he does. So, in that sense, his situation is exceptional. So broadly, we could say the circumstances are transcendental. Sometimes there can be tension between the two. And that tension is seen with extreme drama in the case of Bhīṣma's relationship with Karna. Does that answer your question, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. I would like to thank you on behalf of all of us for online listeners, audience. You made a very nice presentation. What I probably would term is compare and contrast of the feelings of gopis and the feelings of Bhīṣma Pitamaha. In this case, it's a wonderful way of presenting your erudite scholarship in the scriptures and making it available in this format. So I would like to also thank you for giving us the benefit of your studies and deep reflection, and it's wonderful. We really relished it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hope
Hare
to
Krishna.
hear from you again soon.
Happy to be of service. So I just noticed a question. I want to answer it right now from NHRT. So there is, how can we deal with pain? So on my website, The Spiritual Scientist, I'll send a link to Surendra Prabhu. There is, how we can live with pain, but not live in pain. There is a talk about that. So I'll send you that link, and there you can learn more about how we can rise above stress. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Dandavat. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. You're doing well?
Yes, Prabhuji. Krishna's mercy. All well. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Take care. Hare Krishna.